The election is almost decided. We're now only 9 days away from polling day, and what we're seeing is Joe Biden's campaign collapsing. He lost a debate. He's been hit hard by the Hunter scandal. There's no doubt about it. Biden's campaign is a sinking ship. This is becoming apparent in the polls. We're really seeing a strong finish to the campaign by Donald Trump. He is absolutely surging, and one of the polls that shows this more than anything else is a new poll by Rasmussen, which we're going to be looking at today. In this video, we're going to be cross-referencing the Rasmussen poll with the newest data to judge just how correct they are. Then we're going to be analysing the poll itself and looking at the national approval ratings. This is Political. My name is Connor Allen, and I'm joined by my co-host, chief analyst, data nerd, Ryan Smith.
Hello, everyone.
And if you do like Ryan's analysis of the polls, do tell him in the comment section down below. We love to hear your feedback. Tell us your opinion as well. Is Trump going to win the election? Is Biden going to win the election? Subscribe if you haven't done so already. And leave a like if you do like the comment. And with no further ado, chief analyst.
Yeah, let's get into it. So you say a poll from Rasmussen. It's almost a flurry of polls, really. They've released a number of polls, as they tend to do, as all pollsters tend to do. Come as you get to the crunch time of the election, they really kind of start tightening up the methodology and polling those battleground states more and more. So we're going to see more of this, and I'm sure we'll continue to cover what Rasmussen are doing. But first, in Florida, and this one's just come out yesterday, they're showing Trump leading by three now. And what's interesting, if you look at the way that the vote has broken down, most importantly, the thing that is interesting to me is among the 45% who have said they've already voted, Biden has a 17-point lead. And if you are a keen watcher of us, you probably have seen a video we did back looking at a YouGov poll and comparing the YouGov poll in Arizona to the actual real data in Arizona that was happening in early voting, and it just didn't weigh up. They were like massively overrepresenting the Democratic vote there. And what's interesting is with this poll with Florida, they have this 17-point lead, they're saying, for Biden among people that have already voted, and obviously we have that data already. Listen, we don't know what's in these ballots, but we do know that majority of Democrats will vote for Biden, majority of Republicans will vote for Trump, and they have this 13-point lead in mail ballots right now. And then when you add in the unaffiliated, it sort of brings it to about something like a sort of 16-point lead. So it pretty much matches spot on, near enough with what they have got, in the Florida poll here, a 17-point lead, which gives us, I think, a good indication that this poll seems to be relatively accurate, or at least the responses that they're getting from people are quite accurate, unlike that YouGov poll that we were looking at in Arizona, where it just seemed way off the numbers. And I think it actually makes sense that Trump is doing well in Florida, doing better than he did do last time, because it seems there is this feeling, I think, that he's doing really, really well with Hispanic voters. And we've seen all like these parades and everything going on in Florida among Hispanics. Probably a lot of them turned off by the policies of Biden coming from these sort of very socialist countries, a lot of them. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, is it right to even categorize Florida as a swing state at the moment? Because like you say, Trump is absolutely hammering Biden in the Hispanic polls. And yeah, it's exactly as you say. Many of these people, they're new arrivals to the United States, and they have that experience of socialism or communism from Venezuela, from Cuba, from many different Latin American countries. And they arrive to America, they arrive legally, and they see Joe Biden kind of advancing this so-called progressive agenda, which means buddying up with countries they've suffered in and they have experience in, where there's no toilet paper in Venezuela, for example. Of course, they are preferring Donald Trump. Donald Trump was very tough in Venezuela. I seem to remember Venezuelans begging Trump to intervene militarily They want a strong president when it comes to communism and socialism. Biden is dominated by socialists. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Florida, like you say, I think maybe we can. I mean, my mind anyway. I start thinking of this one as a kind of, lean Republican state, and really should. I'm more thinking about places like the Rust Belt or perhaps North Carolina as well. So they've had another poll, this one 2 days old, showing Trump winning in North Carolina by 1 point. And again, let's have a look at the actual, among the 47% people who say that they've already voted, Biden has a 14-point lead. And again, what's great at this point in the election is when we're looking at these polls, we're not just looking at a number and kind of hoping that it's real. We can put that up to, give it some kind of scrutiny and measure it up against the actual data that we do have for these states that collect information on, return ballots. So it's crazy, because if you actually look at it, the Republican vote to the Democratic vote is 14 points. It's a 14.3% lead. So it seems to just match up pretty much spot on with what they're saying in this poll, which tells me that, again, people are being honest with the pollster, or at least their methodology weights it in a way that gives us a honest representation of what's happening, unlike these other polls that we've seen, and then makes me inclined to believe that the other things that they're saying, that i.e. Trump winning by 1 point, makes sense and adds up when the other figures that we can put up to scrutiny make sense. So what do you think about like his chances in North Carolina? Do you see him carrying this one as well?
Well, I mean, as you just proven, the data is there, and the data clearly says he's winning North Carolina by 1 point. I don't think there's any reason to dispute that. Rasmussen, history of accuracy. I think it's quite important, though, and we've said this before on the show. The narrower the margin of victory for Trump, the better his odds overall in the presidential election, right? So if he's winning North Carolina by 1 point, that actually takes out some of the sting of Joe Biden being slightly ahead, and he is only slightly ahead in the national polls. I think data like this, if it's true, could actually point to a Trump victory overall if it's consistent across many states.
Yeah, I think for me, for Trump to be winning, a kind of, I don't want to say comfortable, but reasonable electoral college win, basically carrying all of these states in the Sun Belt, Arizona, Florida, North Carolina, Georgia, obviously, but then also getting a couple of states in the Rust Belt. That's basically what he needs to win. We know that. But obviously these are must wins. But if he is doing that, and if it looks like he's on track to doing that, the victory that he has in North Carolina should be quite marginal. It should be kind of like by that sort of 1 or 2 point margin. That indicates that he's doing well in those other states, and they should be on course for victory. So it does seem to add up what's happening. And as well, if we just have a look as well, is approval rating. So Rasmussen, they do approval rating every single day, pretty much. He kind of reached a peak towards the sort of mid to late part of September, where he was +4 at 1 point, although that may be a bit of an outlier considering that it was sandwiched in between a -3 and a 0. But the point is, he was kind of getting like an even kind of approval rating in terms of the strongly approve and the strongly disapprove, which would have been a peak for him in his presidency, because he never actually achieved those numbers over the 3.5 years, which shows that he probably doesn't really need like massively good approval ratings to actually get enough votes to win. And then that kind of approval spiraled out of control because, well, a number of things. You had that New York Times story, which was kind of, I think, was quite damaging or perceived to be quite damaging. Obviously, that attack has been blunted now, and now a lot of the experts who obviously are experts in tax and accounting and this kind of thing can explain away a lot of the things and blunt a lot of those headlines that the New York Times had. And then obviously the debate performance, and as we discussed yesterday, that kind of very high energy, aggressive A performance that he gave in the first debate, I think, turned a lot of people off. And then, of course, just to cap it all off, he actually catches coronavirus. And, of course, then his approval rating tanks to -15. And since then, and we said this in a number of videos, that we do expect that support to come back as he recovers from COVID, which obviously he has done. And we're seeing that now. He's pretty much got it close, -2, -4 in the last two, which are the best he's had since that period where he reached that peak. So, and obviously you can see, anyone can see a clear trend here as well, that it seems that he is gaining back that support again. So all of the momentum is with him. The approval rating shows that. And if we look again at the national poll by Rasmussen, we had a commenter on a video a couple of weeks back. He said, oh, basically, you know, why is Rasmussen saying Biden's winning by 12 points? I said, because these polls are done based upon likeliness to vote. So the likely Trump voters become less likely to vote if they're voting for a guy that's currently in hospital suffering from a potentially deadly disease. Then as he recovers from that, the likelihood that their vote, or their perceived likelihood, will go back up again. And that's what we've seen. It went from Biden winning by 12 to Biden winning by 8 to Biden winning by 5, I think it was. And now it's Biden winning by 3. So lines up with the approval rating. It shows all the momentum with Trump going into the last 10 days. And remember as well, and we always bring up this tweet, but it's a great tweet, and I think it just demonstrates Trump has that electoral college advantage. He only really needs to win, but only needs to lose by less than 3 points, and he actually still probably wins on the electoral college. Such is the beauty of the way the Constitution is written in America and gives power to the states. And as well, we all know this anyway. If you're a conservative, you probably already are aware that Rasmussen are very good at polling conservative support. They were the most accurate pollster in 2016. They had it Clinton winning by 2, but Trump still winning on the Electoral College, and they actually got it right. They were absolutely spot on. So for me, like I really do have a lot of faith in Rasmussen. I think they're very accurate, at least at polling Trump. So I think coming into this, like now with, like you say, we're just pretty much into the final week. Do you kind of, for me, I'm thinking about how can Biden get himself back into this? What do you think?
Well, I think the Democrats have played their hand way too early. And I think a big reason for this is a lot of their motivation was profit. Okay. So the Democrats think they've had this election since day one, but we saw many things at the start of the election. I've just written a book and Trump happened to say something, so I'm going to leak this to the media. So back in August, a few of these popped up and everything. So all of these are pretty much irrelevant now. No one remembers them. With coronavirus, yesterday or the day before, the FDA approved remdesivir. And no, I can't pronounce that word. I'm sure someone in the comment section will tell me how to pronounce it. Just approved that as a cure. It got better. Things got much better on coronavirus. In contrast, if you look at the Democratic campaign, they started off towards the middle of the campaign very strong. Look at them now. They're fighting off the Hunter Biden scandal. They've lost the debates, have no momentum, and they're collapsing. They just need to get over the line as they see it. And this has manifested itself in the polls, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think I imagine that the Democrats, expecting a lot of early votes, felt as though they needed to play their hand early, as you say, to make sure that those, to make sure that all those stories that the press released, that obviously based upon anonymous sources that we ourselves can't verify. And obviously, we don't have a great deal of trust in the media anyway. But they played a hand early on that. Obviously, they have the press on their side, and it may be that was a bad decision. Maybe it's also a decision that they didn't really have much choice over because so many of their voters were planning on voting early anyway. Maybe they felt like they needed to do that. I don't know. But as you say, the issue now is going into the final stretch, the last week. All of the momentum seems to be with Trump. All of the polls is starting to tighten up again a little bit now, and then Rasmussen, who was so accurate 4 years ago and seemed to be so good at polling Trump's support, and now pretty much showing him on track to win the election. So from Trump's perspective, and I'm sure his team, they're probably feeling very, very confident, really upbeat going into this when you consider where they were 2 or 3 weeks ago when he's in hospital with, literally contracted coronavirus. So listen, I think there's going to be a big flurry of polls now coming into the last 7 days, or well, shall I say this last 7 days, last 9 days coming into the election now. And of course, we're probably going to be really doing our best to absolutely analyze them and put together our own predictions and what we think is going to happen. So if you do enjoy the content, you do enjoy the analysis that we're doing with some of these polls, then please consider subscribing, because we're definitely going to be doing a lot more of this kind of stuff. And as always, thank you for watching.